Florida Governor Charlie Crist. Governor, I was going to call you Charlie because I like you so much, but thank you for coming on. Why are you aboard the Obama bailout bandwagon?
Well, I call it a stimulus for the economy to try to help the people of my state. And it's really that simple, Chris. You know, you look at the kind of deficit that we're facing here in Florida. We just came through a special session where we had to cut over $1 billion more as it relates to making sure that we stay in balance. This program will help us with education, with health care, Medicaid specifically, infrastructure. These are the kinds of things that produce jobs. It could mean $13 billion to the Sunshine State. It comes at a time when we need it. People need jobs. It's about jobs, jobs, jobs. This will help us produce that, and I think it's important to move forward.
If you were Franklin Roosevelt and you were on the radio tonight and you wanted to explain the budget, the stimulus package, it's called, how would you explain it to people in a way that would make them feel confident that the economy could come back if it were passed? Explain it in simple terms, can you?
Sure, I think so. You know, this is a plan where your tax dollars that have already been sent to Washington, and I'm speaking to my fellow Floridians, you know, we have been a donor state for a long time, which means that every dollar we send up there, we get something less back. This gives us an opportunity as Floridians to get more back, to invest in education, you know, to build schools, to build infrastructure, to improve our highway system, to have the opportunity to make sure that we have enough for health care.
The city of Miami this week opened up 35 firefighter positions. More than 1,200 Americans showed up to apply for those 35 jobs. They camped out all weekend. How about Circuit City, going out of business, holding a job fair today for their own employees, both former and current? And how about this? This is in Austin, Texas last week. 2,000 people showing up for a job fair there, more than the organizers had ever seen. So on a day when Ford announced that its January sales were down 40%, GM is down 49%. Ford would be the one that is better off among the big three. On a day when California, the state of California, started paying its bills with IOUs instead of actual checks, why is everyone's hair on fire about Tom Daschle? As senators expressed shock and we, the media, hyperventilated about the new HHS vacancy and Tom Daschle's tax delinquency, President Obama kept his eye on the ball, turning quickly in today's interviews from a mea culpa on Daschle to the issue that matters above all right now to all of us.
We've lost 1 million jobs in the last 2 months. We can't afford another 4 million jobs lost this year. And every economist that I talk to projects that if we don't act quickly, we could end up seeing a much more severe situation than we're seeing right now. Ah, yes, the economy, which is in free fall, and I'm not being hyperbolic. We are in an economy that is in crisis. We're in an economic crisis that requires economic life-saving measures from the government, not because of some Democratic campaign promise, not just according to liberals on TV shows, but also according to economists, just about all economists. And not just TV show liberals and economists, but governors. And not just any governors, but Republican governors, men and women whose jobs depend on how the economy goes, who have to balance budgets and lay people off. California, as I said, is now paying in IOUs. Vermont's Republican Governor Jim Douglas met with President Obama yesterday to discuss the importance of the stimulus. Other Republican governors, including Arnold Schwarzenegger, Florida Governor Charlie Crist, and Connecticut Governor Jody Rell, have all signed on to a letter to put pressure on their own party senators to get a stimulus bill passed now. Well, in this kind of economy, nobody's buying, right? Nobody's investing. We can produce stuff still for now, but there's nobody to sell anything to. So a stimulus plan is meant to stimulate the demand side of that whole supply and demand idea, right? It's to get people buying and investing again. What's the most effective way to do that? Well, Moody's Investors Service looked into it. Moody's doesn't really play politics, they play money. And they say that every dollar spent on food stamps generates about $1.73 in economic activity. Every dollar spent on infrastructure, about $1.59 on economic activity. Tax cuts, which Republicans are ideologically committed to, they can have a stimulative effect on the economy, but not nearly as much, about $1.03. When you start talking corporate tax cuts specifically, you're down into negative territory. Every buck you spend to do that stimulates the economy about 30 cents. Feh.
Despite that, Barack Obama okayed a slew of, quote, stimulus tax cuts. And what did he get for all of his "I'll extend my hand if you'll unclench yours" thing? He got zero.
Of a crisis unlike any we have seen in our lifetime. That is why I have moved quickly on an American Recovery and Reinvestment Plan, a plan I am confident will save or create at least 3 million jobs. First job of my administration is to put people back to work and get our economy moving again.
You're very right about the size of the stimulus that's being offered in the alternative by Republicans. It's by any description just too small to be called a stimulus. But voters will not be checking with economists when they're hearing these arguments a couple of years from now in the congressional election.
And Republicans thus far are not putting forward very nuanced political messages about this. We saw the newly elected chair of the Republican National Committee, Michael Steele, went to the House Republican retreat this weekend and said, "That goose egg you put on the president's desk was a beautiful thing." We've had leading Republican senators saying that they hope that Republican senators might give 0 votes on this, just like House Republicans did. Whether or not they're going to be offering constructive amendments here doesn't seem to be part of their political messaging. Their political messaging seems to be a big NO.
Yes, and you'll notice that they tend to cling to provisions that are no longer. I actually think strategically that Obama, in his need to fulfill his campaign promise of working with Republicans, which I think was a genuine promise and he meant it genuinely, I think strategically they made the mistake of compromising too much with hypothetical Republicans early on, meaning they offered a very large tax cut segment of this bill, about 1/3, as their opening offer to Republicans without having a single Republican say ahead of time, "I will vote for it if you put in 1/3 of it as tax cuts." And so now they find themselves having put in more tax cuts than Democrats wanted and getting no Republican votes for it.